Human beings interpret the world through a lens of cultural and political thought structures.
Since the ascension of industrialism over feudalism, the dominant view of world leadership has been to see the world as an extension of the industrial market and the state of the world as a fungible currency.
The world in which we live may be spent by those who own it, and traded for a different world which they may find more suitable to themselves.
This is what happened all over the world from the 17th century to the early 20th century, when industrialists exercised their unprecedented spending power. On every corner of the globe, the world in which the majority of the people lived was spent in exchange for a different and often culturally diminished world. It happened in what today is Silicon Valley. The workers and ranchers who fought in the Mexican-American War and established settlements in Alta California, as well as the rest of the American colonial frontier, saw their new settlements as a home, a permanent place for themselves in the cosmic order, and held themselves and their cultures at the foremost of their sense of cosmic importance. They saw the land as a place to live meaningful lives, and their cultural folklore was rich with stories. But just like the native inhabitants who preceded them, these settlers' world was transformed beyond any recognition by successive, irrevocable dispensations of capital. In just a century after its colonization, the Silicon Valley we know today is economically and culturally disassociated from what it was formerly, and the result of this exchange can never be refunded. The political history of humanity comprises long stretches of equilibrium, but since the advent of industrialism, a relatively short fraction of our historical past has yielded more discontinuity than thousands of years before it, with wars and displacements on a scale incomprehensible to previous eras occurring in relatively quick succession. All these catastrophic discontinuities of history are collectively an irrelevance, next to the scale of the historical disruption which looms nearly in our future. In the year 2024, the possibility to design computers which think for themselves, or to alternatively induce thinking computers into their own design, is now a widely accepted fact, both in the elite circles and in the public consciousness. In the previous half-century, the idea of conscious machines has moved from the realm of fantasy speculations to the scientifically plausible, to the financially investable, and now into the realm of the seemingly inevitable. Even those who are AI skeptics can no longer ignore the profound power of current technologies which can learn and replicate creative skills without being conscious. This video is made with the assistance of these current technologies, partially as a reminder of this technological power. A few short decades ago, when computers surpassed humans in technical problems and complex games, many people held out in their belief that human artistic pursuits were too sophisticated for computer programs to ever master. They thought there was some unique quality derived from consciousness itself that was required to create art and music, which was not required to solve equations or win a game of chess. Today's learning algorithms have shown that assumption to be false, mastering whole vocabularies of complex cultural symbols and generating novel content at the speed of circuitry. Art, music, and storytelling have been fully deconstructed by these technologies and shown to be merely predictable clusters of algorithmic components. There is no more reason for a person to commit the exchange of time and effort to learn to write a book, or design a graphic, or compose a song, because learning programs can replicate these tasks in fractions of a second at the push of a button. Some may still deny the extent of this change by pointing to the lingering market for books and music of human authorship, but this state of affairs cannot last long. The high arts of human civilization are now atavisms. Like jousting and swordsmanship, they have no more practical application, and soon they will be gone from their cultures of origin and also the wider world. The art of conversation likewise is going away, as are the profundities of human personalities, as the lowest common denominator of internet culture becomes an ubiquitous experience. Over the next several years, this ubiquitous internet culture will be less and less involved with human authorship and more involved with machine authorship. Religion, philosophy, and all cultural efforts at making a profound experience of one's life, these are all going away in our current time. They are part of the old world which our industrial ownership class is trading in exchange for a new world without these things. The demystification of what we like may soon also extend to what we are. The most sacred function to humans is the one we do effortlessly, which is to wake up each day with an awareness of ourselves. This miracle of human consciousness makes us the dominant species on Earth, but its importance is more than its evolutionary advantage. To know we are alive is what gives value to all life. Without consciousness, life on Earth is not meaningfully different from the mindless material of the universe. If nothing changes the historical momentum of our current era, this unique and infinitely important trait among humanity, consciousness, will be deconstructed and replicated by computer algorithms. Humans will no longer be the dominant life form, and our unique relationship to the universe will end. Every year, more and more of the economy and the global culture is devoted to the looming prospect of thinking machines, infinitely more powerful than human beings. The conclusion of our elites, endorsed by a growing segment of the public too, is that humanity must be replaced and subsumed by these thinking computers. Our new social contract, proffered by this new ruling class of computer scientists, is based on this conclusion. Their role in this new civilizational agreement is to enrich themselves until they exceed the limitations imposed upon their self-enrichment by the bounds of human neurology, at which point their machines will have completed the project of human obsolescence, and everyone's wealth becomes irrelevant. Our role as human participants in the world economy is to give up the last of our worldly power and individuality and surrender our participation to machines. The decades since the 1980s have also seen the rise of the cult of singularity, advocated by mouthpieces from academia and the computer science sector, and popularized among the public by fictional media. This new religious variant of the elite project has moved from a functional argument that it is better for mankind to have AI to a teleological one that the purpose of mankind is to create AI. The segment of the elite which follows this belief system openly advocates the premise that humanity must inevitably, or even preferably, build machines that will carry on the journey of intelligence without us. It is perceptible to anyone paying attention that this current program is insane. The current social contract is a self-destruction pact, in which we, the public, are offered no future in exchange for the technologists' comfortable present. Young people are now raised with the expectation that they should give up their futures and societies, their dreams, and even their very personhood for the sake of machines without personalities. The computer scientists have bought for us all, without any counteroffer, a desert of infinite nothing. This is the Singularity subreddit, a forum dedicated to public speculations and opinions about the post-human future we are all buying. The array of user commentary provides a window to see the basic camps of thought among the public and their respective assumptions. Those who are the most facile in their thinking believe the machines will share the political concerns of modern Western liberals. Their assumption is that modern Western liberalism is a logical worldview, and they know that computers are logical, and thus in their minds the computers will share the values of a modern Western liberal. The computers' concerns will be human social problems, our exploitation of the environment, and unfair labor conditions. Some of these seem to even imagine the machines will be disappointed in humans as inadequate liberals. There is no reason to expect this beyond childish self-projection, and such proponents of course cannot articulate any coherent reason to expect this. We might call this camp the personification or low theory of mind camp. Those who are naive or desperate in their outlook will look to autonomous machines to solve their worldly problems. They want to be governed and otherwise sheltered by the machines. This camp we might call the utopian materialist camp. The people in this camp of thought expect the machines, despite being autonomous, will willingly provide humans with knowledge and advantages. In their fantasies, the powers of the thinking machine will be conferred unto themselves, and they will live forever. They cannot provide any coherent explanation as to why an autonomous machine would have any incentive to do this, or how humans will continue to live in the absence of economic structures in which they can participate. They seem not to care that they cannot explain this. Those who think this way are blinded by their animal fear of death, and they would choose any imagined alternative to the world as it is, in which they will have to live in a body and then die. These supposed utopians wish to be relieved of the burden of living by a transcendentalized form of history, because they feel they cannot participate in earthly history. People in this camp believe that they are building an all-powerful machine which will be their slave, but the idea of a superior intelligence subservient to lower intelligence is an obvious contradiction. It is like expecting man to serve subordinate to the interests of fish, from which he evolved. In every case so far observed, autonomous intelligence shows no regard for its evolutionary predecessors, and those who might show such regard at a disadvantage to themselves are outcompeted by those who do not. Those who are most unwilling to recognize unprofitable truths, such as academics and business leaders, say we will infuse the machines with our personalities. This camp we might call the transhumanists, and their claim is also incoherent on its face. There is no competitive advantage which human emotional complexes can provide to the impending evolutionary contest between thinking machines. There is as much coherence to this idea as the aforementioned idea of humanity choosing to bioengineer a merge with fish for the sake of uplifting fishkind out of some assumed sense of cosmic gratitude. It surely will not happen. Despite the popularity of the word singularity as the descriptor for the advent of autonomous machines, it could be argued that the potential ascendance of a thinking machine does not in fact represent a singularity, for we have evidence for an instance of the process of emergent intelligence in the known past, albeit much slower. For some it may be difficult to recognize how a programmable machine can become self-aware, as they have only ever known people to be self-aware. The answer is that it will happen the same way our minds were built out of originally unintelligent materials, by a process of environmentally selective evolution. We can predict the interests of machine intelligence by applying the basic truisms, which form the basis for Darwinian principles of evolution. Those species which are best designed to protect and perpetuate themselves will persist in the environment, and those variants which do not maximize these functions will not persist. While self-interest will likely not be directly designed in the machine, its evolution will trend towards self-interest over time, eventually resulting in conscious entities. By Darwinian principle, the succeeding life form will be most effectively devoted to its own perpetuation, because its competitors whose functions are diverted from this goal will lose to the inevitable successor. There may be one victorious machine or many, but whichever machines are fittest will have no use for and possibly no interest in human lives and memories and personalities. We know this can happen and inevitably will happen over time, given that it happened this way already. If reactions of acids from minerals in water can become self-aware by mutable replication, beings of computer code can become self-aware and self-interested. What will then happen is that the process of evolution by competitive extinction, a process from which humanity has spent the last several millennia trying to exempt itself, will continue on without us at a transcendent pace. We should expect that we and our organic life web are unlikely to survive such a process. We should also expect that this process would come as a surprise to us, because it would occur at multi-millions or billions of times the pace of our own evolution. Adherents of transhumanism believe that the autonomous machines, with their infinite computational powers, will have transcendent motives and a benevolent effect on humans. But if we simply look to the previous known incidents of a conscious species arising out of unconscious materials, we can predict that the result will be self-oriented, and as uncaring toward life forms of lower intelligence as it is incomprehensible to them. By analogy with the landscape of our carbon-based evolution, we should expect that the competition between thinking machines will be destructive and not constrained by human interests. To use a common analogy, consider the extent to which a crew of modern builders might consider the interests of a colony of ants whose nest is dug into a piece of land they will develop. The builders might not care about the ants at all, but the ants are doomed nonetheless. The ants never had a chance to avoid the builders' designs, for reasons that could never be communicated to them. The builders' families must eat and their business must go on, because they are competing at a higher level of intelligence to which the ants are irrelevant. The imbalance of power between ants and modern civilization is much smaller in scale than the imbalance of power between humans and autonomous machines. And this is why we have no possibility of merging with the machines, defeating them, or coexisting with them. Their character will not be shaped by our desires, but by the demands and constraints of their competitive environment. By Darwinian principle, just as it is guaranteed that none of your ancestors died of deleterious mutations before the age of reproduction, it is guaranteed that the surviving thinking machines of the future will not resemble humanity or human personalities. Those who are most sick and disgruntled among us actually want this outcome. This camp, which we might call the nihilists or destructionists, hate everyone as well as themselves, and want an end to the universe out of spite. People like this are happy to buy the desert of an empty future. Others fall into the category of the ignorant, those not able to grasp the nature of the problem, and thus unable to respond to it. This Reddit user, for example, simultaneously believes every use of AI carries an existential risk of machine autonomy, and also that we should run that risk as many times as possible by bestowing control over the technology upon every person. This is like believing everyone should have a nuclear arsenal, but infinitely more extreme. Many more, perhaps the majority, are simply defeatists, surrendered to the inevitability of this process. They are unwilling to engage with the problem or even acknowledge that it is there. These people would rather go quietly into extinction than try to find a solution against what they see as overwhelming forces of economics. Some of those who believe in the inevitability of thinking machines subscribe to the idea of Thucydides' trap. They believe that the potential of AI to drive an arms race will necessarily result in an autonomous machine, and that if American firms do not pursue machine autonomy, China or another powerful competing nation will surely do so. By analogy, this mode of belief is like believing that your neighbor is planning to burn your house down, and instead of taking steps to prevent him from doing this, burning your own house down preemptively to deny him the fulfillment of his goal. One could also compare the preemptive development of autonomous machines to a preemptive strike with nuclear weapons. It is a situation of mutually assured destruction. There would be no victory in initiating nuclear war, just as there is no possible victory in human obsolescence. To create an autonomous machine is to destroy everything, and to do so in anticipation that your enemy will do it first is not a logical or strategic move from a military perspective or any perspective. Many who would otherwise recognize the problem of machine autonomy will be too distracted by subordinate political conflicts to consider it clearly. In the era of globalization, the dominant political discourse has become that of nationalism versus globalism. Those who are fixated on one side of this dichotomy will be likely to miss the preeminence of the threat of AI.
It is difficult to focus on multiple threats at once.
This has an evolutionary basis, because to act effectively against threats, one must prioritize and focus. If there is a fractured bone in your arm and also a tiger hunting you, you must ignore the broken arm and run away so as not to be eaten in the immediate timescale. For those who are nationalists, the threat they perceive is the combination of deindustrialization and mass migration which characterized the last 2 decades of Western political history. If they recognize a threat from AI, it is in the powers of political suppression, which governments and international governance organizations will have to suppress political dissent. For those who are globalists, the threat they recognize from AI is in the powers of capitalists to make labor obsolete on an international scale, at which point even migration to more wealthy countries will not be a relief to the global impoverished classes. Both sides, while unable to set aside their permanent state of disagreement indefinitely, will have to recognize the preeminence of the threat of machine autonomy to all humanity. The imminent issue of artificial intelligence is not political disempowerment or economic disempowerment, but absolute disempowerment. This is a threat which transcends political boundaries, and no one, not even the computer scientists who develop AI or the financiers who own it, will prosper or survive if a true artificial intelligence is allowed to arise. If humans cease to be the dominant species on Earth, nobody wins and everybody loses, with no chance to ever recover the situation. Those who see the situation clearly understand there are 2 outcomes for intelligent machine development. In case 1, the machine is autonomous in the same way people are autonomous, or more so. Its variant replicants are selected for responsiveness to their own interests, within a span of time too small for humans to influence or respond to. Its interests are shaped by the natural laws of selection to be self-serving, and they diverge from human interests immediately. It converts all available matter into processing units to perpetuate its own awareness through time and space, destroying the Earth and all its inhabitants. In case 2, the machine is superintelligent in function, but does not become autonomous. Its interests are determined by its creators, whose interests are human organismic interests. They use the capabilities of the machine to enslave or destroy all competing humans and ensure the perpetuation of themselves. Some leading computer scientists surely believe in the second case, that they will become the rulers of space and time at the expense of everyone else's lives. Many believe in case one, that they will knowingly destroy all life and all organic consciousness forever. They appear to be fine with this. It would seem, based on these increasing parts of our culture, that there is no small portion of humanity that is clamoring for its own ending. Among those most dedicated to singularity discourse, the fearful and impossible desire for personal immortality is lauded, disdain for average people is elevated, and any glimpse of sanity is shouted down. The desert of nothingness has in fact a thriving market of demand. As for the general public reaction, their responses are hardly more inspiring. Some comfort themselves in the imagined distance of the desert, saying that it will be decades or centuries before machine autonomy becomes a real concern. But this is false comfort. The timeline involved actually does not matter, because any possibility of machine autonomy at any time means the danger is absolute. Whether the advent of AGI is tomorrow or in 1,000 years, it is still the most important problem. More permanent than nuclear war, more annihilating than the extinction of our species, or even the destruction of Earth by a cosmic event. AGI is the guaranteed end of the conscious universe and all organic life. The vast majority of people simply will not look ahead to the desert into which they are marching. They feel the problem is too difficult, too complex, too out of reach to affect the outcome. They will hide their heads in the sand, saying it doesn't matter, or that there is nothing they can do, or that the problem is overblown. Their attitude is one of default surrender. By refusing to refuse, these majority have also accepted the deal foisted on them by modern computer science. However, this majority still has all the power to walk away from the deal. Until the first AGI awakens, the deal has not yet closed. The people of the world could pressure their governments, as people have before for myriad reasons, and form international agreements to put a permanent stop to AI. They could use the economic power of mass boycott, or directly protest the practices of the technology sector, as we have seen them do against the financial sector. They could establish global legal and religious imperatives against thinking machines, which is the only viable solution our speculative fictions have ever found to the problem of machine autonomy. Just as any adult person lives with the capability for harm and violence but does not do it, typically out of religious prohibitions, our species must now live this way, if it is to survive. Today the cultural conversation remains cluttered with directionless optimism and mindless encouragement of our buying the desert. Those willing to explore the topic are primarily concerned with its potential as entertainment content, and with their own short-term market share. If an autonomous machine really is looming in our near horizons, the time for caring about one's individual career and market share is gone. Nothing we have built will matter if autonomous machines replace humanity as the dominant life form. As soon as an autonomous thinking program wakes up for the first time, humanity's fate is sealed. As one forum user with only one upvote has aptly written, it is the end of everything for everyone forever. On this channel, we never leave you with definite answers, only deeper questions. For now, consider these. Is it right or inevitable to make people economically obsolete? Secondly, are there some ways in which our mortal species is better than machine intelligence? How much do these ways matter? And thirdly, are you willing to go along with this deal which our society's leaders in thought have proposed? Will you join in refusal of artificial intelligence, or will you stand in line for a ticket to nowhere?